at least the basic nutrients that people don't have enough of. If you're eating all the wrong foods, you're getting poisons in your food. So it just kept on expanding so that it ended up being a not so basic but fairly comprehensive in a lot of different areas, all of which people need, even if they're just starting out.
Yep, that's great. That's a good summary of all that. So how would you, go a little bit deeper on that summary then, and what, like it's basically, it's bucking the mainstream in a lot of ways. I mean, you're talking about, like you said, all the poisons and all that kind of stuff. So to go through it, like you talk about what supplements are good and why supplements are good, and what foods as well. Do you want to talk a little bit more about some of the other main points?
Sure. Well, I mean, I've been the vice president for, I think it's 14 years now, of the 67-year-old Price Pottinger Nutrition Foundation. And Weston Price traveled around the globe and lived in different societies for a long, long time, trying to figure out these people that are in perfect health, that have none of our problems, that live into old age, that don't have any dental cavities, they've never seen a dentist, don't know what a toothbrush is, and yet they're in great health. What is similar about all of them? What are they doing? And, of course, obviously, they don't eat genetically modified food. They wouldn't know what they are. They don't have anything that's preserved or refrigerated. They don't have electricity. They don't have any hybridized plants because they're cultivating or getting whatever nature is giving them. They don't have any beef or any other animal that's eating what you or I or somebody thinks we should feed it to get it fat fast. It's all wild stuff eating what it's supposed to eat. And those are all the things that people can still do them to a fairly decent extent. You can go to the health food store and buy, pasture-raised, grass-fed beef and lamb. You can get eggs from pastured chickens that are eating worms and bugs and getting some organic additional food that they're giving them. But you can't do it if you keep on doing what you've been doing. You can't do it in the regular supermarket. Yeah. So, I go over all of the nutrients that people are missing that they don't know. I try to cover some of the stuff so that people understand. For example, still today, very sad, but still today, in both medical school and dietetic school, and those are the two professionals people know, the registered dietitians and the MDs and DOs, they are not being taught the facts that the research shows. So if you ask them about nutritional supplements, both of them will say, well, no, you don't understand. If you eat a well-balanced diet of adequate calories, you are not deficient in anything. And neither of those people realize that if they went to find the studies that validated that, there aren't any. Every single study that was ever done proved that everybody had multiple deficiencies in vitamins and minerals regardless of what they're eating because our food is so bad. Yeah. Plus, of course, we have all these different things going on that put other stresses on the body. So we need more, and the food is supplying less. Everybody has these deficiencies. So I go over all of the basics. I gave them a name. I call them the Basic 7. The Basic 7 are really simply a good multivitamin, multimineral formula, and the added things that you can't put enough of in there for various reasons that we probably shouldn't waste time going over, which are extra A, C, D, E, fish oil, and a probiotic. And that's the Basic 7. Yeah. And that's not trying to treat something, cure something. That's bringing in what your body isn't getting enough of already. And therefore, if you don't have those things, it can't possibly bring you into old age without various different problems. Yeah. And then I go into all the different poisons that are in our food and the pesticides, herbicides that you want to try to stay away from, the poisons that are in your house, that are in your cleaning products, that are in your bathroom, that they've put in as preservatives in your shampoo and your toothpaste and everything, and how to look for them and which ones to buy to stay away from them. And I have nothing to do with those companies, but I don't want to just tell people, look for these things and avoid them. It's too hard. It's too much to remember. I would rather actually tell people, these are brands I like of this. Those are brands I like of that. Because the other companies don't care if I'm promoting them. It doesn't matter that I'm not part of them. Yeah, exactly. The only people that don't like you are the ones that, and if you're going to badmouth a company, no, you're going to get sued. So I never mention the products I don't like. I only mention the ones I do like because, funny thing, those companies don't get angry at you.
Yeah, exactly. And you put a list of that on your website as well, right? Like, it's pretty easy for people to find out. And I don't know I can't remember if you put that in your book or not, but you definitely list that for people to look at all the brands that you somewhat endorse, right?
On my website, there's an area that goes over. It's in the additional resources section. It's like 4, 5, 6 pages, and it goes over all of the cleaning, bathroom, personal care products, shampoos, toothpaste, and I'm very, very specific because there may be a company that has 200 products, and there be maybe 3 that they have that I like. Okay. So I don't mention the company. I say, this is a good company. I go, no, this is a good product.
Okay. So I have like a million questions here, but to stick with supplements for now. So what about all these studies that have been saying, like in the last, like let's say a year or two, maybe a year ago and a little bit more, there was all these studies coming out and saying supplements don't work, your body can't absorb them, blah, blah, blah. And then along that train of thinking as well is, and then there's studies more recently that seem to say that we're all, or half of us are deficient in magnesium, and in order for us to absorb vitamin D and some other things, you have to be, I think it was other things as well, you have to have more magnesium. So
well, that part is true. I mean, we are, and it's not half of us. The biggest problem, and it's a problem for the doctors. I feel sorry for them. They don't understand how the reference ranges that are printed on the lab tests that they get when they run blood tests on us, they don't understand how those were developed. They don't understand that those were simply regular, normal, everyday people that don't have a diagnosed illness and that aren't currently taking pharmaceutical drugs. Maybe they came in to get a splinter removed or something, and they pool a bunch of them together and they take a look at where their values are. And so those really are normal values. They are not healthy values. They wouldn't know how to determine a healthy value if it hit them in the face. Oh. Those are normal values. And it's currently normal, and this is not meant to be a joke, this is a fact, it is currently normal in the United States for people to die of either heart disease, cancer, or complications of diabetes. So with that being said, I don't want to be normal. You want to be normal? I'd like to die of old age. Yeah. So the normal values are not what you want. You want the healthy values, and since none of those people were eating foods grown as well as they used to be, none of those people were making certain that they weren't exposing themselves to all the poisons. In most cases, if you look at the values on a blood test of things that are nutrients, so we're talking about minerals, trace minerals, vitamins, etc., the actual healthy level for most of them is somewhere between the top 20% of their reference range and 10 to 20% above the top of their reference range. And the thing that you said, which is very true, that the media keeps on telling us vitamins don't work. Here's another study. Look, these people that took a multivitamin for 10 years, they didn't live any longer. Maybe some of them appeared to have lived shorter. What's going on? That's one of my favorite questions, because that's a very easy answer. And as soon as the people listen and hear what I have to say, they'll go, wow, I didn't know that. And, of course, you can investigate it and find out that I'm not making this stuff up. In order to get a drug approved, any drug, wouldn't make any difference. They're going through the approval process. Used to cost $10 million. Now it costs something like $500 million. They have to take that drug and do all sorts of tests, including having people on the drug. And the people that are on the drug that are in this study, those people are followed continually. You're giving them a very specific drug. You're not just going, hey, go take a drug and see if it helps you. That would be ridiculous. You're studying a drug, a specific drug, whatever it is. They are taking that drug. They are taking a specific dose of that drug. They are taking it in a specific way. It might be once or twice or 3 times a day. It might be with food, without food. They might have to avoid sunlight because it sensitizes them. Everything is very specific, including the drug they're being taken, they're being given. And then, they get the results and they, see if they can get it approved. That makes sense. I can understand that. So, therefore, we would all make the expectation that if somebody said we looked at a study or 2 studies or 3 studies on, for example, multiple vitamins, and they don't work, they're not helping anybody, nobody's having less diseases, nobody's living longer, that what they did was they picked some good multivitamin, and they gave the people the multivitamin. They told them, this is the one we want you to take because it's the one we're studying. We want you to take it a specific way, maybe with breakfast and dinner, and we're going to follow you for a certain number of years. That is not the case. What they did was they took some other study that had nothing to do with supplements, could be the NHANES study, Nurses Health study, a bunch of others, and they added in on the hundreds and sometimes many hundreds of questions that these are questionnaires that everybody has to answer, that, once or twice a year they get these questionnaires, they have to fill them out again. And one of the questions is, do you take a multivitamin, yes or no? Bing, that's it.
Wow.
So we have no idea whether what they're taking is a piece of crap multi that no nutritionist would ever prescribe for their patient because they know it's too low dose to do anything. They have no idea whether or not they're taking it correctly. They have no idea what's in it. I mean, they don't know anything. And so you can't do research that way. But when you are a big, big multi-billion-dollar organization like the pharmaceutical company that's trying to get us to believe supplements don't work, then they can, take one of these studies that came out, and they can, call up all of their contacts at ABC, NBC, CBS, Fox, whatever, and say, we want you to promote this study that was just done that showed that the people that took multivitamins, it didn't help them, or maybe they lived less, without letting anybody know that what I just explained to you is what they're calling a study.
Yeah. Wow, that's enlightening. And it doesn't take much for the media to jump on board with that, considering all their advertising dollars are coming from those same pharmaceutical companies.
Well, but that's the reason. I mean, if most of your advertising money, if the majority of your income comes from one industry, and sadly, the majority of the income of every major network comes from the pharmaceutical companies because nobody buys as much ads. When they say jump, you say how high.
Must be the same company that does the safety studies for the vaccines.
Well, actually, that's an interesting one because there are none.
Wow. Exactly.
There has never been a single, and this is scary, there has never been a single double-blind, placebo-controlled trial for any of the vaccines currently in use that's done in the same way drugs are done, properly done, that has ever been done for any of them. So I can't even say that they didn't show that the things were safe and effective. It hasn't been done. They're all bogus studies.
It'd be unethical, David. It'd be unethical not to give everyone those vaccines.
Right. That's what that they have said that many times. And of course, anybody in science would say, excuse me, the only way you know that would be unethical is if you do a few studies and find out that it helped people so much that doing another one would be unethical. When not a single study has been done correctly, you can't say that. It might be it's unethical to give the vaccines, which of course is my belief.
Exactly. Yeah. We all know why they didn't do it.
I didn't know this was going to be an anti-vax show.
That's right, Darren. We're on it. Yeah.
Perfect.
No, that's just a little thing in there. Yeah.
Yeah. No. We just did the big episode with DoBeDoBeDo, and it was fantastic on.
It was a tough weekend for
it was good, yeah.
The Dell episode got tore up pretty good this week. I think it was our most commented on episode in a long time.
Yeah.
You know what it was? Is because I found a nice celebrity tweet about vaccines, and I commented on it, and I was like, boom, measles is not a deadly disease. Here's the link to the DoBeDoBeDo episode. And then I shut off the notifications. I think the last time I checked, it was up to like 80 comments.
Oh, that's
Most
funny.
of them called me.
I hear you.
Most of them called me
one of my favorite comments has been that if somebody's getting into an argument, I say, look, don't argue with the people that don't believe what you believe. I mean, you can't get anywhere. It's not going to work. The question you want to ask them is very simple question, and you have to preface it with, I only want you to answer the question I'm about to ask you. If you say any other words, I'm not even going to listen to you. Yeah. I want an answer to my question. If you were wrong, would you want to know? And unless somebody is a real imbecile, they're going to say, well, of course, if I was wrong, I would want to know. I'm not stupid. It's just I'm not wrong. Okay, good. If you were wrong, you said you'd want to know. That's good. Now my question is, if 99% of the people, because of things we don't have time to go into, believe what you believe, how would you determine that you were wrong other than maybe waiting 20 years until all of a sudden they found out all of the fraud that was going on? How would you figure that out? And it's actually fairly simple. You go on our World Wide Web, you find 3 or 4 people that are experts in that field, not somebody's friend. These have to be equally credentialed experts to the ones that believe your way. And you find the ones that for some reason think that everything is different than what mainstream believes, and you listen to all their reasons for 3 or 4 different experts, and then you decide which side you want to be on. And I give people the ability to do that with a section of my website that I entitled In Search of Unknown Facts. And you can go there, and you can go to all these different things, vaccines and silver amalgam fillings and fluoride and everything, and I give you the links to the experts on the other side, so you can listen to 4 or 5 or 3 or whatever, and you can either go, oh my, I had no idea, and you'll be another one of the converts to slowly raise this maybe 0.25% up to 1 or 2%. Yeah. Or if you wish, you can say, now these people are all crazy. Yeah. But if you have the right experts, that's not what's going to happen. Yeah. And you're going to be swayed.
And there's plenty of experts on the other side as well. I mean, that's the thing that they don't want to look at. But I mean, there is lots of doctors and scientists and PhDs on all these other alternative.
I still think that one's going to come around in the lifetime of the podcast.
Which one? The vaccine?
The vaccines.
One? Yeah. Oh, it's coming. It's already sort of. I think it's already sort of peaking.
It will be
a little
vindicated.
Bit. Yeah. And I did appreciate that about your videos that I saw and your work is you are pretty quick to name and link to people that you know that like are doing this other research and the documentaries, and you'll name them, like, check out this guy's work, check out this documentary, and it's good. You're very inclusive that way with with helping people find the sources that they need.
Absolutely. Well, it's very important. I don't want anybody to ever believe something because I told them that.
Yeah.
That's just as bad as believing it because somebody that has all the facts wrong tells you that.
Yeah.
I want to instead make available to you a number of experts in that field so you can listen to or read or watch a bunch of others and have reinforcement from 4 or 5 experts that are all saying the same thing that you've never heard before.
Yeah. So I've been hearing magnesium on the top of the, like, you should, like, some people have been telling us, you know, even on the show, like, the number 1 supplement you should be taking is magnesium. So how come that didn't make your top 7?
It didn't make my top 7 because I won't use a multivitamin that doesn't have anywhere between 300 and 600 milligrams of magnesium in it.
Okay. So you're getting that in the multi. Yeah.
Right. The multi's got to have a bunch of that in it. However, I will say if I go to 8 or 9, that oftentimes I have to give them even more magnesium than there is in the multi. It just depends on which multi they test for.
Right.
And there's a lot of people have written about magnesium. I tell people, if you want to know about magnesium, do yourself a favor. Buy an older book. Buy a book from somebody that is dead. Her name was Mildred Seelig, MD, MPH, Master's in Public Health, and a medical doctor. And the name of her book, which is still available and still in print, is The Magnesium Factor. She studied magnesium, and that's it.
Wow.
For 45 years.
Wow, yeah.
I was very happy to meet her in person, to listen to a number of her lectures. All these other books are simply repeating stuff that she told us a long time ago.
Okay. How long ago, like, was she telling us that?
If I remember correctly, I think Dr. Seelig probably died about 8 or 9 years ago. I've been in this field for close to 30 years. But everything, I mean, that's all she researched was magnesium. And most of the people that have a regular heartbeat, they're low magnesium. Most of the people that have cramping and muscle twitches, they're low magnesium. And when they say that to the doctor, that maybe they read it somewhere, doctor pulls out their SMAC 25 or their CBC, looks at their serum magnesium, and says, your magnesium is fine. It's right in there where it belongs. And the doctor doesn't understand that the amount of magnesium floating around in your serum was conclusively proven on thousands of people over decades of research by Dr. Seelig to be irrelevant, and that you have to look and see how much of it is inside the cells, and there's one lab that does that correctly. And the lab is called the Intracellular Diagnostics. Their test, which is the only test they run, is called the EXA test, EXA test. And we have to scrape the inside of somebody's mouth, put the cells that you're scraping off the person's cheek and tongue onto a slide, send it into ICD, and they test it for, I think it's magnesium, potassium, calcium, sodium, and chloride, 5 different nutrients. And it comes back low unless the person's on enough magnesium.
Right. Wow. I had my mouth scraped today. I was at the naturopathic dentist, ironically enough. It was a perfect experience before our chat with you because I have a couple broken teeth and I wanted to go to a naturopathic dentist and look at having my fillings removed. And it was a great experience. They did a whole bacteria scan. They scraped some of my plaque and did a whole bacteria thing. They showed me on the microscope, and then they took some HD pictures of my teeth and they went over the whole thing with me. Take out the filling. I only had one mercury filling, which is good news.
Good.
So
I had 32.
Really? You had 32?
I had 32. They were removed decades ago, but properly by a good dentist.
Yeah.
But I had 32. Yeah.
Wow. Yeah, and
mercury ones. So what are the rest of yours that aren't
32
mercury?
Silver amalgams. That's mercury. Yeah.
Wow. Yeah. So mine are composite. They're plastic ones that are shrinking down, and they're actually starting to get not eroded, but whatever the name is of when you get that.
Yeah, they get oxidized. They get old, and really, what everybody should do if you're with a good dentist is tell them you want them to order on you a biocompatibility study. There are 2 labs that do it, and they take blood and they send it into either of these 2 labs in Colorado, and they test your blood's reaction to a couple of hundred different substances used in dentistry to find out which are the ones that your body is okay with So when they pick a filling material, a crown material, an inlay material, an onlay material, a bonding agent, they pick only from the ones your body's okay with.
Oh, that's interesting. Okay, I'll mention that next time. Yeah, he doesn't do root canals either. That's a whole new thing that, well, I don't know how new it is, but I'm just starting to hear about it where they don't think that those are safe now. So he'll do he'll do an implant before a root canal. So that's interesting.
Yeah. And that work was done 40 or 50 years ago, and the book to the public that brings that work back out, because the work was done by Weston Price and published in medical journals. One of the 16 founding members of the American Association of Endodontics, that's the people that do root canals, one of their founding members, and a great guy. He died a couple of years ago. He wrote a book called Root Canal Cover-Up Exposed.
Wow.
And that's the book that everybody wants to read so you can see exactly what really happened.
Wow.
So I've got a few root canals. Should I be worried?
Yeah, you should go in and get they do a full x-ray, and they'll see pockets in the bottom where they might be actually infected down there.
And the x-ray will only show about 5% of them. You actually want to get a CT of your mouth, CT scan of the mouth. That'll show more of them. Even though it's more radiation, if there's something going on, it will show it much more likely. Most of the ones they're using are called either a cone beam or an ICAT. And, it's scary. There's a video out that was done in, I forget, in Europe. The DVD is simply called Rooted, and they go over a lot of this. But Root Canal Cover-Up Exposed, great book.
Well, thanks for that. So I wanted to ask, there's a bunch of other things, but I want to get to, before we run out of time, because it's going by fast, I can tell already with these great conversations, but some stuff about our own personal experiences with diets and right now, there's this whole sort of battle, it seems like, vegan versus keto. There's a lot of people on keto, there's a lot of people on vegan, and both sides seem to have the scientific evidence to prove the other side isn't really a healthy diet. And lately, I've been sort of leading down the more of the keto, just lower carb diet, almost like what you have in your book, actually, which I want to get into a little bit. I'm almost there. But there's all these fears now around meat and red meat and the cancer and processed meat. Can you talk about that at all? Is that something we should really be worried about, or is that just, funding from... there is a big corporate veganism push as well, and I think we're going to end up trying to push back from a bunch of lab-grown meat eventually.
I'm off processed.
Yeah, they're talking about lab-grown meat. I've seen some of the TV shows on it. Yeah. But again, it's not exactly the same, but it's somewhat the same as the bogus research that I just mentioned having to do with supplements.
Yeah, that's what I was
because what happens is, first of all, you can't believe research because it can be funded by somebody to direct it when research is not supposed to be directed. It's supposed to be looking to see.
Yeah.
But the only research on diet that can be properly validated in my eyes is what I call multi-generational research. And this is because you can ask any of the DNA scientists, and they will tell you that things that are around us, it's called epigenetics, that's diet and lifestyle, can not only affect your genes, but now it gets locked in and your kids' genes are different, and then they do the wrong things and their kids' genes are different, and so we keep on getting worse and worse and worse. So if you want to know whether a way of eating is a healthy way of eating, you can't ever do that or look at that based on a 6-month study, a 1-year study, a 2-year study, a 3-year study, unless, of course, what you're trying to determine is that you'd like to live another 3 years. Not me. I'm 67. I'd like to live another 40 years. So I don't care about 2 or 3-year studies. I want multi-generational research. Weston Price traveled around the world and lived with societies before good old humankind, mankind, white man stuff, etc., got in there and screwed everything up. So these societies all over the globe had been eating the same way for thousands of years. And so we know that what they're doing is legitimate because you couldn't do it for thousands of years and still have the entire society in perfect health if it wasn't. This is not short-term research. None of them were vegan. So if somebody wants to tell me that there's multi-generational research, you find me a 5th-generation vegan, and I'll give you $10,000. However, you won't be able to do that because there are too many things missing, and they would have lost fertility before they got to 5 generations. They'd probably lose them before 3rd or 4th, but, we'd have to see. When they do research and they say, we did this study, and the people that ate more meat had more heart disease and more cancer.
Right.
Well, I don't just listen to them. I go on to Medline, and I buy the study, and I read it. the majority of them, up until not too many years ago, put every type of red meat together. So if you were buying hot dogs or you were buying, packaged garbage filled with nitrates and nitrates, they were calling it red meat. So those you can just throw them the hell out to begin with. Then they started finally doing a couple of studies, very few, where they separated those out, and those were called luncheon meats, and then they had the red meats separate. And they still found that there were some problems with the people that ate more red meat. However, none of Price's tribes ate meat from animals that were eating food that were not natural to that animal's lifestyle. Right. And so you can't look at any of that research and figure anything out. You would have to find research, which of course they're not doing because they don't want to know this, of a group of people that instead is eating grass-fed beef and grass-fed lamb and pastured chicken and all the things closer to the way the animal was supposed to be eating, and now you're eating anti-inflammatory fats. I mean, if you were to ask somebody, name the type of fat that's supposed to be good for us, a lot of people that are not into nutrition would say, you mean the what are they, omega-3s? Yes, okay, omega-3s. Now, where do you get omega-3s? They'd say, they have them at the health food store. No. Well, where do you get them in your diet? And a lot of people will say, well, you can get them in salmon, I think. Yes, if it's wild-caught and they're eating what they should be. You can get them in wild-caught sardines. What they don't know, and the research has been done because I show about 6 of the studies in my course every semester, is that there's 500% more omega-3 fats in grass-fed beef than in the corn-fed, grain-fed beef that everybody's eating.
Wow.
So you can't compare those two foods and say that the research says something when you're researching inflammatory meat.
So there really is a split between, let's say, some of the processed meat from like you said, corn and grain-fed compared to just red meat from a grass-fed.
From pastured cattle, yeah.
Huh. Okay, that's good to know.
You mentioned keto.
That's what I thought. I mean, that's what I thought. So where would bacon's important to us Canadians up here. Where would that fit in?
Well, now bacon's an interesting one because 4 separate scientists, Gaston Nassance, who was from Canada, Raymond Royal Rife, Weston Price, I forget who the 4th one was, all were doing research where they were looking at live blood from people in different areas of health. And they all determined, and they didn't know each other, that if you took somebody whose blood looked good, and it's hard to find somebody whose blood looks good these days, but if you took somebody whose blood looked good, lots of healthy red blood cells not sticking together, macrophages doing what they're supposed to be doing, etc., and you gave them some pork, any pork, could be a pork chop, could be some bacon, whatever you wanted, even could have been organic. Within under an hour and a half, their blood looks like the blood of a cancer patient. So, after learning all that, I at first said, okay, I'm going to stop eating pork. I'll occasionally have a little bit of bacon. And then a book came out that investigated just a small number of some of the longest-lived populations in the world. And one of them gets most of their meat from pork. Huh. So I said, okay, if that's true, then I'm missing something. I've got to figure this out. And I looked around, did some research, and I found that all of the pork that we get in the United States and Canada, which if you've seen pigs on TV in the movies, and they're all slick, they have no hair on them, those are hybridized pigs. The original pigs, no matter which variety they were covered with hair. They were not slick. So I started doing some work instead, finding heirloom varieties of heritage pork, and those don't cause the problem.
Wow.
And so I now eat bacon again. I go to wallacefarms.com, and again, I have nothing to do with any of these companies. They're just companies I love. I go to wallacefarms.com, and I order a whole bunch of their bacon from heritage breeds of pigs, outdoors where they're supposed to be. Their bacon is fantastic. Their breakfast links are fantastic. They also raise beef and a bunch of others. But as long as you're getting something from the heritage varieties that are hair-covered, not slick, and as long as they're outdoors eating a lot of what they should be eating, in addition to some things we have to feed them to, or maybe they won't get fat fast enough, then pork doesn't have the issues.
Huh. All right. And what you were going to say something.
What about wild meat?
Well, the healthiest meat you can get is those people that hunt. I mean, my parents were very liberal, and the idea of hunting, was like verboten. You would never want to kill an animal. I don't like killing animals, obviously. I mean, I'm a good shot. I was on the varsity rifle team, but I don't want to kill anything. Luckily, somebody else does it. But those people I have, those patients that I have that hunt elk and hunt deer, venison, that's the healthiest meat you can get under one condition, and it's an important condition. You have to go hunting in those areas that are enough miles away from any farm that those animals are not coming in and eating genetically modified grain and corns and getting all the farmers really angry because now they're not eating their species-specific diet. You've got to get the ones that are only eating from the wild, in which case that's the best meat you can get.
Just head out to the national park and boom.
So you were mentioning, you were going to say something about keto, I think.
Yeah. As far as paleo, which is another funny word out there, that's the Paleolithic era of human history, and we didn't have agriculture. So everybody was only getting what they could hunt and gather, and there wasn't a lot of stuff growing because you'd eat it all, and then it's gone because you didn't have a whole row of something because nobody could plant it. So people were eating predominantly animal-based foods, and the two best movies on that for people that want to watch the movies, one of them is called In Search of the Perfect Human Diet, and the other one has a title I don't like as much, but it's a good movie, called We Love Paleo. But those two go over some of that. When it comes to keto, we don't know of any populations on our planet, past or present, that ever ate keto. So I can't point to a population and say, hey, here's a multi-generational population. They ate keto for thousands of years, and they're totally fine. We can't do that. So I can't say that it's a fantastic, great long-term diet for anybody. However, we do have enough research to show that the high-fat diet, if we teach the people the good fats, and if they're not including, because they're bad fats, if they're not including canola oil and soybean oil and cottonseed oil and corn oil, but they're instead using all of the fats that are on the skin of the animal that's eating correctly, and butter from grass-fed cows, and coconut oil and palm oil, if they're using the good ones, we know that a high-fat diet, especially if it gets so high that it puts the person into the right level of ketosis, there are different levels, that it very often turns off seizure disorders. That's how it was discovered decades ago as an anti-seizure diet. So we know it's good for that. We know it's great for cancer because cancer cells live on sugar. And if we switch the body over so it gets all of its energy from fats instead of from sugars, the cancer cells are not happy, and we want the cancer cells to not be happy. We know it's great for diabetics because, again, we're cutting out the starches and sugars that are causing them a problem. We know it's great for resistant weight loss. The only problem with the ketogenic diet is two problems. One is people are using the wrong fats, and the second is most of the people that I've met that tell me they're eating keto are not eating keto. And that was brought up at the Best Answer for Cancer conference last year, where the entire conference was on the ketogenic diet. So we had one after another of doctors, research scientists, PhDs, going over the benefits of keto for cancer. And the last lecturer got up there, MD, PhD, if I remember correctly, and she said the only thing that nobody has mentioned, which is super important, is that if you don't have a blood, not urine, a blood ketometer, and if you don't learn the levels of ketosis that you need to get into and check to see that you have gotten there, you're not on a ketogenic diet. You're just on a high-fat diet, and that's not keto. It's not ketosis.
Interesting. So Darren's been on a diet for a while of you haven't had you kind of don't eat sugar anymore, right? And wheat and stuff or bread. You were on kind of a gluten-free thing.
Sugar, gluten, and dairy.
And lately,
I slip on the dairy and the sugar and the coffee once in a while.
Oh, you put sugar in the coffee.
But I'm real good on the gluten, and I'm
good.
Probably I'm probably down to a couple teaspoons of sugar a day and maybe a couple cups of milk a week. We try and do grass-fed butter and ghee.
Okay, good, excellent.
So I finally cut out sugar. Like I've got a sweet tooth like nothing. So I cut out sugar and wheat for 6 weeks now, I guess. And the weird thing is, I used to be quite regular, so I'd eat like croissant breakfast sandwiches and bread a lot, and
you're doing a real
half-assed
job on
No,
the
what are you
wheat.
talking about? No, I don't have any wheat. I had pasta a couple times at the beginning. That was it, and otherwise no wheat. So, but I'm not regular anymore. Like now, I'm like I go every couple days, 3 days, and my weight's kind of up and down, like 3 or 4 pounds down and up at a time. Like, why would I go from being regular while eating lots of wheat to not being regular?
Well, one of the things that makes some people regular, and interestingly, other people it makes constipated, is fiber. And so if your body needs the fiber to be regular and you cut that much of it out, then all of a sudden somebody starts getting constipated. So we have to bring in the fiber elsewhere. You know, we have to have a whole bunch more fibrous vegetables. We have to use kelp noodles or shirataki noodles. The two noodles that are 100% fiber contain no wheat or starch and are actually perfectly healthy for you, so that we can regulate what you have pulled out when you pull out all the fiber from the wheat. Plus, our body gets used to things, and when we make a big change, sometimes the first thing it does is get constipated. There is one of the things that happens with people that go paleo. A lot of people end up constipated for 3 months or 4 months
I was wondering
until their
if
body
that's
gets
what it
used
was.
to it.
Yeah, I was wondering if that's what it was. Like your body's holding on to everything because it doesn't know what the hell's going on all of a sudden.
And, of course, the best lubricant is fats.
Yeah.
So I tell people make certain that you're bringing in lots of fats, but even just those two pastas, so to speak, those two noodles, kelp noodles, which is made by the Sea Tangle Company. It's actually in San Diego. And any brand of shirataki noodles, which are also called konjac noodles, and they're made from the shirataki yam, which you would think would be all starch, but it has no starch.
Okay.
They're both all fiber. And the shirataki yam, the shirataki noodles, easiest place for people to get them around the country in Canada would probably be to go to miraclenoodle.com. That will bring in the fiber that can give you some regularity back. But it doesn't support health in general because it's just fiber. Fiber has no nutrition in it, but bringing it in may be able to help you.
Yeah, okay. And it's not like I'm not like, all bunged up necessarily. It's just the whole pattern is off, and it's just weird that it would, after starting to eat healthier, it would go that way.
Sure, and of course we don't want anybody to have an elimination every 2 or 3 days.
Right.
I want people to have a minimum of 1 elimination a day, and the healthy population that were studied always went the exact same number of times they ate. If they ate 3 times a day, they went 3 times a day.
Wow.
Because we're just a big food tube.
Yeah.
Why should it be any other way?
Yeah. So I got a question about the original recipe, Mrs. Vicky's chips. Like all it is potatoes, vegetable oil, and sea salt. Are those okay?
No, because potatoes are pure starch, and the body turns it right into sugar.
Right. So that goes back to the carb keto thing, kind of. I mean, yeah.
And I always tell people, if you want to understand diet a little bit better, stop using the word carbohydrate.
Okay.
And I announced this in class on Tuesday, the only time you should use the word carbohydrate, you'll love this, is when you're explaining to somebody else why they should stop using it. and the reason is because, and I show a big slide up on the wall in class, and on my slide is a bag of cane sugar, a piece of white bread, a croissant, a bagel, and a big piece of broccoli, some asparagus, some cauliflower. I think I've got some leaf lettuce on there. There's a tangerine. And I go, what do all these foods have in common?
They're all carbs.
And what they have in common is they're all carbohydrates.
Yeah.
So if a piece of white bread and a bowl of sugar are carbohydrate, and a piece of, or a bowl for that matter, of broccoli or Brussels sprouts or asparagus are a carbohydrate, then how can you tell somebody that they should or shouldn't be on a low-carb diet?
Yeah, I think people are assuming it's simple carbs or whatever the difference between. I think people are already kind of assuming that it's like that, the bad carbs versus good carbs. Well, but if we use the word
simple carbs, then they say white rice is a simple carb and brown rice is a complex carb. And brown rice is barely any better than white. So I instead say starchy vegetables and non-starchy vegetables, and the starch is what we want to avoid.
Okay, that's good. So and rice is not a starch then, or is it?
No, rice is a pure starch. I don't eat rice. Yep.
Yeah, okay. So what about DHA?
Not even wild rice?
Well, wild rice is actually not a grain. Wild rice is a seed, and it has a lot less starch in it. So wild rice is a much healthier, and of all of the grains that there are out there, only one converts to sugar much more slowly than the others. Only one, and that's barley. And so if somebody were to get heirloom quality organic barley, then that would be the healthiest of the grains. And some of my celiac patients will say, no, I can't eat barley. Barley has gluten in it. And I go, yes, but your doctor is wrong. You are not reactive to gluten. You're reactive to our garbage wheat. And I will give them from my kitchen, even though I rarely have any because we don't eat starch in this house, I will give them a cup of an heirloom quality organic barley, and I'll say, make this up and have it 2 or 3 days in a row and see if you react. If you react, don't have it the next day. And they are always calling me up and saying, so now I don't understand this. I was told I react to gluten. There's plenty of gluten in barley, and I'm not reacting at all. And then I have to explain, it's not gluten, it's the wheat. Go to my website, put in the word gluten, and listen to my lecture on wheat and gluten.
Okay, that's good advice. What about DHA versus mercury in fish, like getting a proper amount of DHA? I was listening to some scientist a couple of years ago, and he was really into like water, magnetism, DHA, and sunlight as being the most important things really for us.
Well, those, I mean, they're certainly all important. But, you know, probably my favorite doctor in the whole world, the person who I consider one of my mentors, is Dr. Jonathan Wright. And he has said a couple of things over and over again, one of which is mimic nature. In nature, you can't find DHA without EPA. So I will never have anybody on a DHA supplement. They will be on a fish oil or a cod liver oil supplement that has lots of both. I don't ever want one. I want them both. But yes, EPA and DHA are very, very important. Good quality water is very, very important. I just want to make sure there's enough. And as far as your question, yes, it is true that quite a few different types of marine life are loaded with mercury. But the good companies, such as Carlson, they assay every batch, and they don't use anything that's high mercury. They have, you know, their cod liver oil that I have thousands of patients on is very, 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 very low mercury. You know, they try to get it to undetectable. So, yes, you should look at it. You shouldn't just grab some product on the market that might be bad, and the idea that because it's got EPA or DHA, it automatically has mercury, that's not true. Actually, one of the big sources of mercury, which I find fascinating, and I haven't looked into the exact reason, it has to do with their processing, is high fructose corn syrup.
Really?
And you wouldn't think that.
No. There's a lot of issues with that, though.
There's a lot of mercury in the high fructose corn syrup?
Apparently, something having to do with its processing has mercury in high fructose corn syrup. I've heard this from people I trust. I haven't looked into it to determine exactly why, but it doesn't matter as much to me because of all of the natural sugars, glucose, maltose, lactose, fructose, et cetera, the most damaging is fructose. And so I don't want anybody to eat high fructose corn syrup or the sugar that has even more than that in it, or actually the substance that has even more than that in it, called agave nectar. Because high fructose corn syrup is approximately 50% fructose, and agave nectar is approximately 54% fructose. So if you're trying to avoid the fructose in high fructose corn syrup, agave nectar is even worse. And since fructose is the only sugar that all by its lonesome self can cause non-alcoholic fatty liver disease, screw up your triglycerides, and causes insulin resistance, it's actually one of the more damaging sugars, but it never caused a problem. Because we could only we could only collect fruit when they were in season in your area. We didn't have stores. And so people ate fruit for 6 to 12 weeks of the year, and then they didn't see them again for 9 or 10 months.
Yeah.
Now, because the the government and your doctors are saying, eat more fruit, eat more fruit, eat more, and people are eating it all the time, and the body can't handle it.
So I noticed in your recipes you have yacon syrup a lot. Is that what you use as a substitute for something sweet like that?
Yes, I use the 3 healthiest natural sweeteners, which are yacon syrup, stevia, which is probably the single most mispronounced word in the health food store.
I was going to ask about stevia.
That's not stevia, right? Stevia, yacon syrup, and lohan, which the common name is monk fruit. Those are all healthy sweeteners, and if I'm going to sweeten something, I'm going to sweeten it with one of those 3, or occasionally with one of the 2 sugar alcohols, xylitol or erythritol, as long as they're non-GMO.
Okay, that's good to know. Yeah, that's kind of what I've been doing stevia instead of honey in my coffee, so that's been a little bit better.
Much better. Much better. Yeah. And I know I have a lecture that I did and put up on my website on sweeteners also.
Yeah.
What about maple syrup?
Maple syrup is like honey in that a lot of people say, well, it's natural. I mean, it's got to be much better. And I make a joke out of it, and I say cobra venom is natural too. So is lead, so is mercury. They come from nature.
Those don't taste that good though. Maple syrup is the best. It's so good. Oh,
that's true, but it's pure sugar.
Like maple syrup.
I haven't had it in 6 weeks.
Yeah, maple syrup, whether it's grade A, B, C, or fancy, is still predominantly pure sugar, just like honey. So if people think about it as pure sugar, and they know they should have much less sugar, but they happen, if they're going to sweeten something, they go, I like the taste of maple syrup. Somebody else says, I like the taste of avocado honey. Somebody else says, I like the taste of Tupelo honey. Okay, fine. Have as little as you can, and if those are the ones you want to have, fine. I would instead have Lohan, Stevia, or Yacon.
Okay, that's good to know. That's awesome. So what about the energetic testing you do to some of that? Do you want to describe that process a little bit and how you do that for some of the products?
Sure. Well, energetic testing is fascinating, and the common word that's used, or the common name that's used, is muscle testing.
Yeah.
And when I first was introduced to it, it looked to me like a load of garbage.
Yeah.
And I saw people doing it, and I could see by watching what they were doing, as somebody that's very scientific, that they were screwing it up. That this was not real. They were totally making this stuff up, and so I therefore assumed it was bogus. And then I saw somebody do it correctly many years later, and I went, "Oh my God, this is not bogus. Everybody I saw doing it was doing it wrong," and that got me interested. And after that, I took a class from a nurse. I took another class from a doctor. I took another class from an acupuncturist. I took a 10-day course from a credentialed, currently teaching physics professor, and I started using it. And it's the only method that I can find which gives you the ability, once it's learned correctly and carried out correctly, to not just find out whether something is good or bad for you, but which one. I mean, if somebody says, I should take vitamin C, sure, you should take vitamin C. Everybody needs vitamin C. We don't make any. Now, would you be better off with a particular vitamin C, such as this liposomal C, or that liposomal C, or this magnesium ascorbate, or that calcium ascorbate, or this ascorbic acid? I don't know, but I can use muscle testing. I've got 9 different vitamin Cs. I'm looking at them right now in my testing cabinet, and I will test the patient for all 9 and see which one their body wants, and make sure they're getting the best one. I want the best vitamin C for them. I want the best multivitamin for them. And that might change, because maybe when they come into my office, they're so toxic that a really good high-potency multivitamin will make them ill. And especially if I say something about a multi, and my new patient says, I've tried 5 multis from the health food store, and they all make me sick. Okay, that just triggered me to realize that their kidneys and liver are probably in even more bad shape than my regular patients' kidneys and liver, which are already in bad shape. And once we do kidney and liver support for maybe 6 months, now they can take a high-potency multi. Because even the nutrients that our body needs, they still have to be processed and the metabolites eliminated, and that goes through kidney and liver. So, that needs to be done to find out what's correct, and it can change. And I love to give people information, and I like to make it free, and I like to make it easy. So I was thrilled to death. I didn't think this would ever happen when an integrative oncology conference asked me 2 years ago to do a lecture on muscle testing. And since I was doing it over in the side for their public group that wasn't being taped, I taped myself. And so I put up on my website, if you go down to the bottom of my website, down the bottom, there are a bunch of photographs there. One of the photographs is a photograph of me pushing on some woman's arm. And if you click on that photograph, it brings you to a page which has the entire set of my PowerPoint slides and a PDF and the entire 90-minute lecture. And so you can listen to the lecture while you're advancing the PDF yourself, and you can watch a really good, I was very happy with it, an hour-and-a-half lecture on muscle testing, so you can much better understand it, or have somebody else do that doesn't know what it is.
Awesome. That sounds good. So I guess a couple more questions here. Essential oils, do you have any opinion about those? Does it depend on the brand as well, or? Well, everything is energy.
I mean, that's one of the main things that everything's been shown. Everything is energy, and essential oils have a lot of energy in them, so they can be very, very helpful. As far as brands, there are a lot of brands out there. The only thing I really want people to know about essential oils is, number one, yes, they can be very helpful. Number two, the idea that they must be used topically. No, in France and other places in Europe, the medical doctors are trained to use them internally, so they can be used that way also. Number three, the multi-level companies, which is Young Living and doTERRA, are not the only companies that have good oils, and you can get much less expensive oils that are not multi-level. There are a lot of companies. One of the ones I like, because it's owned by a chemist that tests all of his oils, is Amrita, AMRITA.net. So that's a place that's not multi-level that you can get them. There are a lot of good books on essential oils, but I usually tell people, buy one that's not put out by the multi-level companies. Get one of the books by Kurt Schnaubelt. He's the person that puts on the, what's it called? I think it's called the Southwest College of Aromatherapy, something like that. They put many conferences on, and so you're getting a more independent person's view. But yes, no, essential oils have helped a lot of people in a lot of ways. Some of them are really strong antibacterial agents, antifungal, antiviral, such as oregano oil. Yeah. Thieves. Thieves is a good combination. Yep, Thieves is a great combination. There are quite a number, like lavender, that have lots of different uses. We have a couple which are used specifically topically for different injuries. Helichrysum, which is massively expensive. Helichrysum is sometimes nicknamed the arnica of essential oils because it's good for any kind of wounds and bruising. So yeah, essential oils is something people should look into.
Okay, that's good to know too. So like chronic issues, like my girlfriend has EDS, Ehlers-Danlos syndrome, and stomach issues and autoimmune. Like there's a lot of people now that have these chronic issues where the doctors can't help them at all. I mean, like they've been going for decades, you know, to the doctors, to the experts, to the hospitals, and getting tests left, right, and center, and they still don't know what's going on. Have you been able to? Have you ever had any experience with EDS specifically, I guess, or in chronic issues or autoimmune issues? Have you seen some good results in some of your patients?
I have not had anybody come to me with EDS, but I have many people that have come to me with autoimmune conditions. Yeah. And most of us believe, and I don't know what it would take for somebody to prove to me wrong, that every single autoimmune condition, I don't care what it's called, you know, it could be ALS, could be MS, could be EDS, could be you name it, that every single autoimmune condition is actually either totally caused or massively aggravated by our toxic load. Because what happens is you get enough poisons in the body can't do its job correctly. Right. And there are a lot of different types of toxic substances which some people don't consider as a toxic substance. So, for example, if you took 1,000 people with 10 different autoimmune conditions, I don't care what they are, and you put those people on my diet off my website. Anybody can go up there and just put diet into the search engine, and you'll get my 60-day diet challenge, healthy diet challenge.
And that's in your book too, right?
It's in my book also, right? Yeah. A huge number of those people will notice massive improvements in their autoimmune condition and go, holy crap, how come my doctor didn't mention anything about this? How come he or she didn't tell me it could be something having to do with my diet? So, for example, you start pulling out poisons, and you start pulling out foods that cause inflammation, starch, sugar, and alcohol, or that cause massive inflammation in you but not in everybody, such as wheat and soy. I have people where when they absolutely 100% went wheat-free, and I don't call it gluten-free because, like I said, I may have them eat barley, and barley has gluten in it, but they go 100% wheat-free, and they've seen such unbelievable changes that their doctor runs a panel and says, I don't know what to do here. I mean, I've been treating you for this condition for the last 10 years with different drugs, and according to this last lab test, you don't have that incurable condition anymore. So I don't know what to tell you because you can't not have it. It's incurable. And we just laugh.
Wow.
That's how they get you.
Yeah.
Yep.
So do you want to get into a little bit about your recipes in the back and maybe some of the diet that you can before we let you go here?
Sure. Well, the main thing on, you can call it my diet, but I mean, it's just a healthy diet. And of course, the people that think that there's a cardiovascular diet and a cancer diet and a diabetes diet, no, there's a healthy diet and there's an unhealthy diet. And a healthy diet is low starch, sugar, and alcohol, and large amounts of multicolored, non-starchy vegetables with all of the good fats that I teach in my classes and in the book, so you know which are which, and adequate amounts every day, not occasionally, every day, adequate amounts of properly raised and properly fed organic meat-based or let's say animal-based protein. And I'm very vague with the word animal. As far as I'm concerned, if it's a fish, if it's a bird, I'm just calling them all animals. If it can locomote by itself and it's not planted in the earth, I'm calling it animal protein. So as long as they're properly raised. And when people start to do that, the lower they put the bad stuff, the better off they are. I don't eat starch. I don't eat sugar. I don't drink alcohol. I'm not telling everybody they have to never do that. But if they go on my diet for 60 days, 100%, and then on day 61, they're at a friend's house for a birthday party or a wedding ceremony or whatever, and they go, oh, I'm glad today's day 61. I'm going to have a small glass of champagne to toast the bride and groom, and I'm going to have a half a slice of their wedding cake. And then the next day, they feel like crap. And they call me up, and they say, thank you very much. I used to be able to have 3 times that much, and I felt my normal. Now, when my body is so much happier, when I have that stuff, I feel horrible. And I say, you're very welcome. That's very good, because the only way you're going to be able to be motivated to eat well is by making your body clean enough that when you do something it doesn't like, it slaps you in the face. And as far as the recipes I've got in there, I just picked some of the ones that my wife and I have come up with. There's a great book, actually, which I highly recommend. It's called The Gluten-Free Almond Flour Cookbook. I mention it in my book. It was written by a woman, Ilana, E-L-A-N-A, Amsterdam. Her website is Ilana's Pantry, probably.com. And she makes 2 mistakes in the book, a big mistake and a little mistake. The big mistake is all of the sweets she has sweetened with agave nectar, which I consider to be a toxic sweetener. So when I sell the book, I have one in front of me. It's got a sticker, a permanent adhesive sticker that I put on there that says in bold type, don't use agave nectar. Yeah. Use yacon syrup instead. And then she has people using grape seed oil, which is not a traditional oil. And I have people instead make all of the recipes taste a lot better by using either butter or a 50-50 butter coconut oil mix. And she's got lots of recipes in there for cookies and cakes. And the only thing you can do to make her recipes not work is not use one of the brands of almond flour that she clearly tells you on her website are the ones they've tested in the book. And the one I always use is Honeyville Grains. But I mean, I've had people say, I made her carrot cake and it was awful. It was heavy. It was dense. And I said, you didn't use the right almond flour. No, I bought one in the health food store. You can't do that. And then they make it correctly and you go, wow, it was delicious. The only difference was the difference. Right, it has to do with the fineness, I guess, of the grind of the almond flour.
What about an off-the-shelf, like middle of the grocery store bag of rice chips or something like that?
Well, what's interesting is that of all the different things that the body converts into sugar, which of course hurt us, the fastest converters there are popped or puffed grains. So rice cakes, for example, or puffed wheat or puffed rice, you might as well just put your tablespoon right into a sugar bowl. As far as rice chips, they're not puffed and they're not popped, but again, it's rice, so it converts really fast. Yeah. If you wanted a chip that would be, let's say, the healthiest of all the chips out there, the healthiest one I've found is from a company called Beanitos, B-E-A-N for bean, I-T-O-S, Beanitos. They're made of different types of beans. They have a whole bunch of different flavors, and they send the chip into the Glycemic Institute to get it tested for slow conversion. So there are a lot of bean chips on the market. None of them are as healthy as Beanitos.
Okay, that's good to know. And then otherwise, just go with nuts. And is there any nuts that are better than others?
Well, the nuts that have the best fatty acid ratio, number 1 would be walnuts. Number 2 would be almonds. Most of the others are all fine. You know, I like pignolia nuts, pine nuts, macadamia nuts. Really, there are only 2 nuts which I tell people would be better off avoiding,
pecans.
And those are the high-starch nuts.
Okay.
The high-starch nuts
better not be pecans and cashews.
Pecans are fine. Pecans are totally fine. Pecans are no problem at all. But cashews are 35% pure starch. The body turns it right into sugar. And that's the reason we like them, because they taste sweet, because it's already converting into sugar in your mouth. And the highest starch nuts, pistachios, totally fine.
Okay, good.
There really are only 2 nuts Only two that I want people to avoid or eat less of. One of them is cashews, and the other one, which is almost pure starch, is the one we eat during the Christmas holidays. Chestnuts. Chestnuts are almost pure starch. They're delicious. They're very sweet tasting because they're all starch.
Okay, that's great to know.
I don't even know if I've ever had a chestnut.
Yeah.
Well, we used to get them in New York. They used to have stands. I'm sure they still do during like December and January when it's really cold. They've got them and they're roasting them, and you're getting roasted chestnuts, and they're delicious, but they're pure starch.
All right, Darren, do you have any questions?
No, I think. I just got to cut more stuff out, I guess.
Well, I challenge people. I really challenge people to eat my diet for 60 days. That's the reason I call it the Healthy Diet Challenge.
I think...
and all that's in the book, too, and the website.
Yep.
So, and all those recipes in the back. I mean, I was looking at some of the recipes, like that cheesecake one that you have in there that looks really good as well. So,
oh, yeah, that
cheesecake
is delicious.
Some healthier snacks. So,
yep. Cheesecake is delicious.
I'm telling you,
nuts,
buddy,
like you said.
Freeze a couple bananas. Freeze a couple bananas.
Bananas pure. Oh, it's not pure sugar, but it's very high sugar.
You just like to root everything, don't you, David?
And the easiest way for people to get to my website is my name. If people just put in, everybody can spell David correctly. That's really interesting. For some reason, when you tell them that the website is DavidGetoff.com and that that's my name, they don't automatically assume that Getoff is spelled G-E-T, get, O-F-F, off. They assume if it's a name, something must have been done to it, and then they tell me they can't get to my website.
It's got to be O-V or something like Getoff.
O-V, G-E-T-T, G-E-T-T-O-F, G-E-T-H-O-F. No, just get off. DavidGetoff.com, and it'll redirect you to Naturopath for you.
DavidGetoffTheWheat.com.
Right on. Well, thanks.
There you go.
Thanks, David. Yeah, that's been a great chat. You know what? I really appreciate you answering all our specific questions and just not, just getting into each individual topic. I really do appreciate that, just going with the flow like that and not having just a set spiel that you go with. And there's lots of content on your website and lots of information out there that you're doing. I really appreciate it.
I never have a set spiel. I always do whatever it is somebody's asking me for. And if you have an actual direct link to our recording, send it to me so I can send it out to people and put it on my site.
Yeah, you will. Yep. You betcha we will. And thanks for answering those personal questions as well. That was super helpful to me personally, and I hope I'm sure other people got some benefit out of it as well.
I'm hammer into some vitamin C.
Yeah.
Go for a tan tomorrow.
Right on. All right, buddy. Okay, thanks a lot, David.
Right on, Dave. Come back anytime.
Absolutely.
Okay.
All right, thanks a lot. I'll go have dinner.
Okay, all right. Bye-bye.
All righty, bye-bye.
And that was our chat with David Getoff. What'd you think, buddy?
Fantastic.
Isn't that late for dinner? That's a little late for dinner.
No, I think he's in California.
That's still 8:30.
Oh, yeah, it is late, eh? It's 9:20, yeah.
That doesn't line up with your
intermittent fasting and all that. I was going to ask him about fasting too, but you know what? I felt like he was on for a solid, quick run, very fast talker.
Yeah, awesome. He mentioned he only had so much time.
Lots of information. Just loved it. I loved how he answered all the stuff like very, I knew it would be a good interview. When I started researching his stuff, I just thought that's going to be fantastic.
I think I need more vitamin C.
Yeah.
I haven't had it in a while.
And you know what he was saying about vitamin C is sometimes you need a lot more than you think.
Yeah.
It's not like you can just, maybe have a tablet or two. You might not need to
lately when I get into it, I try and take 2,000 milligrams at a time.
Wow, yeah.
Just we
should ask him about the garlic. Chop up the garlic, let it sit for 5 minutes, pound a handful of garlic back.
I eat a lot of garlic. For sure. A lot
just
of garlic.
Raw garlic?
A lot of onion. Yeah.
Raw garlic?
Yeah. Tons.
What about the oregano oil? Did you do
I've been off the oregano oil. Yeah, it's hard to stay on everything. It's just a lot of shit.
Well, I think it eats a lot of your gut. I think you got to supplement with some probiotics. If you eat too much
oregano,
it's going to kill a bunch
of
healthy shit as well, I think.
I don't do any probiotics. Yeah. I just got back on the kimchi.
Kimchi, yeah.
Which is, I think, a probiotic, right? Does that give you a probiotic? Or I should be taking a probiotic, I suppose.
Almost anything fermented has probiotics. Even red wine.
Yeah.
What about whiskey? No. Is that fermented?
No,
no alcohol.
Whiskey's distilled.
But that was a great chat. Yeah, it was awesome. Yeah.
Fantastic chat. Do you think I'm going to remember that I hit stop on the recorder and that I have to attach this file, or is this just never going to go?
You know what? We don't have any in the can. This is going out next week, so
it should be fairly fresh. Can you put a note in the notes to attach the outro file?
Yeah,
Perfect.
No problem.
What a team. Anyway, big thanks to Mr. Getoff for coming on the show, telling us all the food we got to get off. You know, you think you're off enough stuff. Never enough.
And the thing is, it's hard to find this, you know, grass-fed heirloom pork with hair. I mean, you know, where do I find a pig like that for my bacon?
You
I mean,
grow
that's
it.
the problem, right? I mean,
You
but
gotta go find.
I did like the part about the studies. Like, I really wanted to ask him all these personal things we've been curious about, like the meat studies and stuff. And it's kind of what I thought.
You gotta get the farm. Then you just gotta go buy a couple of heirloom piglets, get them fucking, then you got pigs.
But then you got to kill them to get the bacon, I guess. Too bad they just couldn't, you know.
You need a guy like me around.
Too bad they couldn't lay bacon like eggs, you know.
Then you'd eat their young.
Can we like GMO
You
one
could
just to lay
I guess you
bacon
could
out?
just
Just like
eat the
strips of bacon. Like,
I guess you could
right,
just
right beside the egg.
You could just eat the babies.
What?
Well, that's what the laying egg
Oh my
is.
God. You
Roast up a little piglet.
Yeah. You know what's funny is when you do a pig roast, the whole thing tastes like bacon. It's amazing.
no, it doesn't, does it?
Have you never done a pig roast? You're
Done a
50
pig
years
roast.
old.
When am I going to do a pig? How am I
You're
going to
50 years
do
old.
a
You never
pig
been
roast?
to a pig roast?
Well, maybe one of those. What are they called in Hawaii when you do the whole
The luau?
Yeah, but that was kind of fake. I mean,
Well, did they actually roast a pig?
well, they roasted something. A boar, maybe.
Oh, did you eat
Does
it?
that count? Well, yeah, probably. But
I don't know. My experiences with pig roasts, everything
You
kind
guys
of
used
comes
to
out
roast
sort of.
pigs in
Oh yeah,
Ontario,
we used to
or-
have keg parties with pig roasters.
Really?
Yeah, you can rent them.
rent what?
Pig
The
roasters.
roaster?
Why don't we roast a pig out here this summer?
No, I don't know. With an apple in its mouth and all that.
I don't know about an apple in its mouth. This isn't fucking Walt Disney.
This isn't Charlotte's Web.
What? The pig lives in Charlotte's Web.
Yeah, the spider guys.
The spider.
I don't know the story. I just pictured a pig with an apple in its mouth.
The pig doesn't
The
get
pig
eaten in
lives.
Charlotte's Web. And his name is Wilbur.
The spider dies.
The spider Charlotte died.
Oh. That was pretty sad. Now that you're mentioning it, I remember being pretty sad.
We listened to it
But
on
I
our
don't want to
trip.
roast a full pig.
We listened to it on a trip to California.
I'd rather buy
Charlotte's
these.
Web, the end's a real.
Oh, really?
The end is a real
Oh,
deal. Is a
yeah.
real tough one.
Tearjerker, yeah. I'd rather buy these little. They have those little hams in Safeway now that they're like pre-cooked hams. I'll just stick with that. No roasting alive.
You know what?
animal.
We should fucking roast a pig at
No,
Cat.
I'm not roasting a pig.
You're just scared you're gonna get roasted. We'll roast Graham at the pig roast. We'll have a Graham roast. But like your roast will be like the comedy style
You'll be trying to fatten me up beforehand.
I'm not
you won't
gonna
want-
eat you, but I might roast you.
All right,
Fucking
let's wrap it up.
that's it. Support the show. Grimerica.ca/support. Just do it. Come on. I'm not gonna give you I'm too
Because you guys just say because we need it.
I'm a little under the other this
We
week.
need
Under
it.
the weather
Under
this
the
week.
other?
I don't have the energy to try and con you out of your money. Just support the show because we put a lot of effort into it.
Because we need it to keep going. I mean, really.
That's right. If we
Yeah.
don't, we'll be kicked the fuck out. If we get kicked out of here, the show's canceled. That's it.
Yeah.
Can't come back much.
Yeah, bro. See, we can't
Brody
come back
said,
to
Brody
Brody
said
Brothers.
we can't come back. So, Grimerica.ca/support, Grimerica.ca/stripe, Grimerica.ca/Patreon. Other than that, thanks for listening, and we will see you next week. Oh, my guts. Me
Oh,
guts.
say bye to live people too.
Bye, live people.